All right, let's call the meeting to order. If everyone would stand to say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, just going to remind everybody of the speak your piece norms. Pay attention, be aware, and attend to the world and the people around you. Listen, focus on others in order to better understand their points of view. Be inclusive. Welcome all groups of citizens working for the greater good of the community. Don't gossip and don't accept when others choose to do so. Show respect. Honor other people and their opinions, especially in the midst of a disagreement. Be agreeable. Look for opportunities to agree. Don't contradict just to do so. Apologize. Be sincere and repair damaged relationships. Give constructive criticism. When disagreeing, stick to the issues and don't make a personal attack. Take responsibility. Don't shift responsibility and blame onto others. Share disagreements publicly. Okay, first order of business is the selection of board president and vice president.
Kat, do you want to do roll call?
Oh, do we? I'm sensing that you do.
Director Diamond.
Here.
Director Hetherington.
Here.
Director Horvath.
Here.
Director Odette. Here. And Director Rolfe.
Oh, here, yeah.
Any modifications?
Any modifications to the agenda? No. Okay, so
Public comment
public comment.
before.
Oh, yes. Is there any public comment on anything that's not on the agenda today?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Ken Aronson, and I'm the former commander for the Civil Air Patrol at Truckee. I am currently the Experimental Aircraft Association Young Eagles and Youth Coordinator. I also run the Mission to Mars Space Camp at the Truckee Airport. This will be our 15th year, and we have 4 camps lined up this year. On behalf of these groups, I want to thank you for your support for these programs that we do for our youth. I'm not here now representing these groups. I'm here representing myself as a hangar tenant. I recently received my monthly bill starting for 2025, and I noticed it has gone up quite a bit from years past. I know we've had some incentives in the past that made the bill affordable, and those like Fly Quiet has been discontinued. I understand it's an FAA thing. I know we have a Fly Safe program following the Wings program from the FAA that offers that incentive, help us with our rent. I have participated with the monthly meetings that we've had here or the seminars on flying safe, but now in order to complete the program, I have to do a check ride. I don't have the time or the money to do the check ride now. I'm scheduled to do it in October when I expire on my biannual. It's in the budget at that time. When I was railroading, I had no time, but I had money, so any additional cost I could cover. Now that I'm retired, I have no time from all the programs I'm doing, and I have no money. The way it is when you retire. Is there another way that we could have our hangar costs be a little more reduced, following alternative incentive programs to fly safe? Maybe AOPA has seminars, Experimental Aircraft Association. The Civil Air Patrol has the Flying Mountain certification. I am certified. We do this like once every 4 to 6 years. We're the folks that go out and look for people who are not flying safe. Could that be used? But we don't do it every year. I don't have the time to go out every year and take that certification. Could we have maybe a work-in-kind agreement that we do something that benefits the airport or the community of something the airport supports, and then have us give a little bit of help with our rent? I know the Civil Air Patrol National or Wing headquarters in Reno has that with the airport down in Reno at the International Airport, a work-in-kind agreement to help them with their rent. I don't want to give up my hangar. I have it for an airplane, of course. I don't really care about the airplane, to be honest. I fly just a little bit, primarily Young Eagles, and I use it for show and tell at our space camp. We'll take a home-built airplane to Mars, for example. I use my hangar right now. I store all the space camp materials in my hangar, and you'll see my new car, New Blue I call it, here at the airport almost daily, working on my space camp stuff, getting prepared. Last summer we used my hangar a couple times for the actual camp because the boardroom was not available and I couldn't get to the EAA. So I want to keep my hangar. Can we consider some alternatives than just the Fly Safe FAA Wings program that you are offering? We thank you very much for offering that, but is there a way we could have alternatives for us that are not going to do our flight review this year? Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Anybody else?
Hi, I know everybody here. Happy New Year, and I wanted to welcome the new board member, Greg Horvath. I've been, just a little tiny background for me, I've been flying in and out of here for 45 years in all kinds of airplanes, turbines, pistons. I've never had any trouble. It's a very safe airport, and I can reiterate, the tower is one of the greatest things that they put out here to improve safety and keep people safe. Anyway, so I'm welcoming you, and it's good to see everybody, and Happy New Year. And let's see here. I've got over 10,500 hours in airplanes, and it's been very safe. Anyway, I just wanted to thank the airport for their undiminished support of the STEM/STEAM program that I got heavily involved with. My portion of that was through amateur rocketry. The support of the airport and everybody involved has been just wonderful. And I ended up doing a flight a year and a half ago out at Black Rock and got my level 3 certification. And this is all through STEM, and it went 4.5 miles high. We got it all back, and sounds like a lot, but the record was just broken in October 20th of this year at Black Rock. Single stage rocket built by some engineering students in Los Angeles went 470,000 feet high, 89 miles.
Jesus.
Anyway, I'm very involved with Sierra Rocketry Association, and I brought these. If you guys each want a copy, you can go online and see what they're about. And for me, it's giving back and the kids. We go out to these launches, and you can go on the website and go out there. You pay $10, you know. But to see the kids out there get so involved with this and fired up, it's just, it brings tears to your eyes. It really does. It's incredible. And we got to get these kids involved with all kinds of neat engineering stuff. Rocketry is a small part. It is an aviation-based endeavor, of course. And the kids, it's all about the kids. We got to keep doing this stuff and get these kids involved with engineering. And another part of this that I've really seen, I'm really glad to see that they've added art to the STEM program. And my feeling on that is one of the big drivers behind that is the Burning Man Festival. I've been to that 10 different times. I go for 12 days, build a camp, invite the world into the camp, spend 3 days cleaning up, and I mean, we clean that up to the point you can't tell. And the artwork that is presented out there, you can't imagine it. And the people that go there, it's just unbelievable. And I'm really glad to see that they've added art to the STEM program. It means a lot, and the engineering of this stuff is, I don't know how they do it. I really don't. So anyway, I just wanted to thank everybody for that. It's been a very positive experience, and I made copies, so I'll just leave them here for you guys. go online and check it out. And again,
Thanks, Lee.
thanks to everybody.
you.
Thanks
All right.
to the whole airport, your support with this. It's been a very, very positive experience for me. Thanks again.
Thank you, Lee. Okay. Oh, Kevin.
Hi, my name's Kevin Sloan. I'm a local pilot, tenant, and live in the district. I wanted to thank our new board member, Greg, for taking a few hours last week and going flying with us and seeing some of the pilot's perspective and the pilot's view that we live in and the world that we're kind of boxed into. We were able to do a couple of IFR approaches, so you saw that view, some of the VFR patterns or waypoints that we use, so you saw that as well. I think that is an incredibly educational thing from a perspective point of view. It would be great if any of you guys haven't done it. I'm sure it's available to do it. So I highly suggest it. I think it makes a very educated perspective when it comes to understanding everybody in the community's perspective or view of fly quiet, fly safe, and how we need to blend those two together. Also a comment on Ken's, I do know the airport is working on a couple of different ways aside from the WINGS program, so that is in the works. Other than that, thank you and Happy New Year.
Thanks, Kevin. For those of us on the board who are terrified of small planes, there's also Mike Daniels' wonderful video on the website that gives you all those perspectives from his plane, which is great. But thank you, Kevin, for the offer. Anybody else? Okay. So the next item is selection of board president and vice president. I'd like to do things just a little bit more slowly this year because last year it felt like a race to who's going to nominate first, and then I moved everybody forward so quickly that we didn't all get a say. So I would like to honor that everyone has an opinion and would like to hear what they have to say about next year's board president and vice president. Would you like to start?
Do you want Josh to cover a quick overview of this type of process, which is a little different than we've done in the past? If
Sure.
That's okay.
Yeah, so it is, explained on the agenda, but the general idea would be rather than jumping to a motion and a second, either for a single position for a slate of candidates, there'd be a formal nomination period. So first we'd stop, open it up for nominations for president. Anyone would have the opportunity to nominate any other director themselves. Once all the nominations were received, we'd close that period. And then there'd be sort of a discussion process to determine if there's a selected candidate. Once it's clear that there's one person who has this, the support of the majority, then you could move to vice president, complete the same process, and then end the item with the motion to approve those two candidates. As was mentioned, this is an optional process. If the board would prefer to stick to your normal procedure of jumping, moving forward with the motion right away, you still have that discretion, but we included this as an option for you to consider.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to nominate David for president. I think this is his 5th year, and I think that it would be appropriate for him to be president. That would be my nomination.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Kat.
Anybody else?
No changes to that.
Okay.
So
So
how do
let's
we-
open
which-
this up for discussion. Do you want to start? You kind of already started a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think, having been here a long time, it used to be president. It was just a informality that whoever was president, the next year vice president became president. It was just rolling. But there came a time where a person just didn't, they were vice president, they didn't want to serve, and we ended up with these 2-year terms. And you did a 2-year term, you did a 2-year term. I haven't done a term since I've been elected 6 years ago.
Okay.
David has been in, like I say, 4 years, and he was on ACAP before that. And Greg, would love to have you be president, but not yet. Sometime in the future. So that's why I think it's appropriate for David to have that protocol kind of followed.
Okay.
You want me to justify my nomination? I think.
If
do
you want
great-
to, you
No,
don't
I
have
do,
to.
I do.
Okay.
I think you're efficient, focused. I did serve as president for 2 years, and what I learned from that is it's a ton of time and something I personally don't have the time for. I can't commit to being here every single month and doing all the work that it takes. So while nobody nominated me, this is a concern I would have about David.
Why?
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, because he's busy doing stuff. But whatever, that's not it. I just think, I know that I have limitations on it, and I think that others might as well. I've just figured Kat's around the most, plus she's efficient and good and focused and involved in, not that anyone else isn't. It's not an anti, it's just, that's where I'm at with it.
Okay.
Thanks, Mary, for that nomination. I would like to do that. I think I would be good at this. I'm dedicated to this position. I've never missed a meeting. I do have time to do this. You're correct, Teresa. I do a lot of things outside of this meeting on the airport board in service to this district and in service to our communities here at the lake, here and at the lake as well. But I would have time for this. And I would like to do it. I think I would do a good job.
Kat, do you have interest in being president?
I'm happy to go next. I do, and I hope that I will be president again. But I think David has excellent leadership qualities, and I think it's time for David to be president. I think you'll do a great job. So I appreciate the nomination. Do it again next year, maybe. But
Is it an annual cycle or a 2-year?
Annual.
it's been annual, yeah. So, and we
It
have
should be annual.
yeah.
It really should be
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
but,
And things change. I mean,
yeah,
parents get sick, or
yeah.
sometimes your time is not what you think it's going to be.
So
But
should I make a motion now? Is that appropriate?
That, or we can move to vice president and do one motion for both positions. If there's consensus, it's up to the board.
do we need to ask for a public comment?
We will need public comment before you vote on the motion.
Oh, okay.
So in terms of vice president, I would like to nominate myself. I mean, I hear you want to do it again, and we're only in here for 2 more years. But I haven't been in here in that role, and maybe I will want to be president next year, and I don't know. We may end up with bringing somebody else in, but
Yeah.
I would like to consider having me as that backup person.
Well, I nominated you to be vice president last time because I had nominated Kat to be president. And there is differing opinions, sort of a wide range of opinions up here. And because of that, I would go with Kat for vice president, just because David it's just a different opinion. Not that I don't think you do a great job. I know you would. I've been here, seen all that, but I'm going to nominate Kat.
This side of the table.
I think that there's no bad choice here for vice president on this dais. Yeah, I mean, Mary, as you're saying, it's been 6 years since you've been in one of these positions. And as you have stated, you do not intend to run again, so you do have 2 years left here. That said, Kat, I mean, there's no bad decision here.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I'm still learning the full breadth of what these further sub-roles include. I have a lot of respect for both of you. I would be happy with either of you in that role. not a committing position, but I support you both in this instance.
Awesome. I think Mary should do it.
To be honest, the vice president is really.
Yeah, we know what it is.
As long as the president shows up or, you know, is capable, it's
Yeah.
a dignitary or something. It's so, and then you and I can talk later for that next year, see where we're at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a long time from now.
it is.
Okay,
So,
all right,
a motion.
motion?
I'd like to make a motion for David Diamond to be president and for Mary Hetherington to be vice president for the 2025 year.
Okay, is there public comment? Oh, Mr. Mayor?
I am Jan Zabriskie, and I encourage you to do a regular rotation. I think every person who serves as chair grows in that position, and when they step down and just become a director again, they're a much better participant, and the whole board benefits from it. From Teresa Odette all across over to Greg. I think each one of you will benefit and find that you get along better when you rotate. So that's, I'm not here to say you should pick a particular person. I'm saying you should follow that policy. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jan. Anybody else? All right.
And we do need a second on the motion?
Oh, there's no second.
I'll second.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, roll call?
Director Diamond,
Yes.
Director Hetherington,
Yes?
Director Horvath,
Yes.
Director Odette,
No.
Director Rolfe.
Yes.
Good luck.
Oh my God, why are you so
Okay, let's move on. Thank you, everybody, especially Kat. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Moving on to consent. Does anybody on the board want to pull anything from consent?
No?
Anybody from staff? Anything from consent? Anyone from the public? All right, do I have a motion? Approve consent?
So made.
And seconded.
All right. Do we want to do roll call, or we're just doing? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, consent carries. Special presentation, item 6, annual Board of Directors training presented by District Council Josh Nelson. Josh.
Thanks, President Diamond. So this is kind of our annual board training. Next slide, please. I thought it's been a couple of years since we kind of talked about, some of the board norms and board staff roles and responsibilities. And I thought, it might be good to kind of, go back over those. And then also I wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking through the different types of meetings. So what's the difference between a regular meeting, a special meeting, an emergency meeting under the Brown Act? And perhaps more importantly, what are all the rules and requirements related to, in-person meetings like we're having this afternoon, to the teleconference meetings, and then some of the private remote meetings, and in particular focusing on, for yourselves, what are your kind of the requirements and responsibilities that apply when you're participating, especially participating remotely. Next slide. So just, there are, different models of running an organization, and the model that we follow at the airport district, as what's followed by most local agencies in California, is the board manager form of government. And the general idea is that the board of directors, hires and fires your general manager. You're going to set high-level policy, and then, your general manager is going to take that policy, he's going to implement it, and importantly, he's going to manage all employees below him with the exception of myself. So, the board has 2 direct reports, GM and general counsel. Everyone else in the organization reports to the general manager. And please, stop me and ask questions or comments as we kind of move forward. Next slide. I think another way to, look at the roles of the directors and the roles of staff, or that the directors identify the what we're going to accomplish, and staff's responsible for how we're going to do it. Next slide. So on the what for directors, so the board, as a collective body, is going to create, the mission statement and strategic plan. And I know there was a lot of work on the strategic plan recently. You're going to debate and create sort of the high-level policies, and make those, tough, big picture decisions about where we're going to go as an organization. You're going to, manage the general manager, and importantly, as part of your sort of fiduciary responsibilities on the board, you're going to be especially paying attention to the fiscal sustainability and management of the organization. Now, staff, on the how. First is making sure that you have the information to identify those policies and make the big picture decisions. So I know being a board member is a tremendous amount of work on your on your side, but you also have jobs and lives and other things going on, and this is sort of a part-time responsibility. So I think in some ways the most important role of staff is to make sure that you have the information you need to make those decisions. Then another thing I think the board really helps do, or that staff is responsible for doing, is creating that environment that allows you to accomplish your responsibilities. And then once that policy is set, it's staff's responsibility to implement it, and then to also handle day-to-day operations. So another, kind of way to look at, the board is both as the board as a collective body, and then board as, individual directors. And importantly, all decisions, unless otherwise identified by policy or law, are made by the board as a body. Ideally, decisions are going to be made by consensus, and there'll be general agreement on most things as to how you'd like to move forward. But there will be situations where there will be differences of opinion. That's normal, that's natural, that's healthy. And in those situations, decisions are made by a majority of the board if required. But once the decision's made by the board, that's the decision of the board as a collective body, even if there may be minority viewpoints on them for individual directors. And as individual directors, you are one of 5. And so, you're all equal in that regard, and each one of you is entitled to the same vote. And no one director is above another director. The one exception to that is the item that you just went through. You have identified a president and vice president, and by policy, there are certain roles that are delegated to that office. But outside of that, each director is essentially the same. As far as recommendations on how to make sure that you're an effective body, and that the 5 of you as individuals are working in a way that allows you to sort of effectively act as a collective, is understanding that and we talk about the speaker piece before each meeting for a reason. It is likely that you will disagree on policy, and we've already saw a decision today where there was disagreements. That's normal. But one way to make sure that as a collective body you're still functioning is that those disagreements are functioned on the issue, and not a person. Personal attacks just create unnecessary tension and mistrust, and make it more difficult for you to work together. Another thing that I would recommend you watch out for is a voting block. And what I mean by that is not that there aren't individuals on the board who you will naturally see issues similarly, right? It's normal to find people who look at issues similarly. That's normal. What I mean by a voting block, it would be a situation where you have committed either explicitly or implicitly to always agree with one of your colleagues on an issue, regardless of what your personal viewpoints are. That respectfully, isn't helpful, that's not an issue where you're, reviewing an issue independently and making a decision which may happen to coincide with somebody who has similar views. In that case, you're, deciding, hey, we're in together and we're always going to vote the same. I think we've already kind of talked about working with a collective body, and I just wanted to emphasize that last bullet point there. And I think it's one, as somebody, who works with different agencies and sees this. I think one of the things that you always talk about when you're talking about organizations is culture. And I really do think that the board, even during board meetings, helps set the culture for organizations. And I think if you look around the basin, or if you look around the state, organizations that are effective are, a lot of times organizations that have boards that work together, effectively and really set that sort of tone for us as staff, being responsive to you, but also for attendees and others. And again, that doesn't mean that every decision that comes before you is 5-0, or that you never disagree on issues. That's natural, that's healthy, but how you do it really can help establish the culture of the organization. Next slide. Another thing to consider is distinguishing between being a policymaker and an advocate. I think, as somebody who's running a campaign, or speaking out as a stakeholder, from public comment or otherwise, you're expected to be, and you are an advocate, right? So you're committed to a particular idea or belief or viewpoint that you're trying to get across. You're representing an idea or constituent group, and your responsibility as an advocate is to try to convince others of your viewpoint. What I would suggest is that, once you've sort of become a director, you should strive to sort of take off that advocate hat to the extent you can and really focus on being a policymaker. At this point, it isn't about necessarily pushing one particular viewpoint or issue, but listening and making an informed decision on each issue comes before you after reviewing all of that information that you receive. And reminding yourself that, once elected, you represent the entire community, and should strive to make decisions that are best for that entire community. Next slide. So just really briefly, just about my role. Important to remember that my client is technically the district as an organization, and my duty is not to any individual director or staff member, even if on a day-to-day basis that's what I'm going to be working with, right? An organization is only a collection of individuals. But ultimately, all of the attorney-client privileges and work product and direction that I receive comes from you as the governing body of the organization, as a collective body, and not as individuals. That being said, of course, on a day-to-day basis, I'm going to work really closely with staff. And the majority of the work that we're doing is at the direction of staff because they need help on a contract or reviewing a policy, or they have a question on something. Next slide. Right. So some takeaways. Just a reminder that directors and staff have different roles, and directors should let staff implement policy, and staff should remember that we're not setting the policy, you are, and that once that policy is set, we need to help accomplish it. Any questions on that before we jump to the Brown Act stuff? All right, so as mentioned, I thought it'd be a good check-in just on the different types of meetings under the Brown Act. I think there's really two different ways to look at a type of meeting. The first is, the Brown Act distinguishing between what they call regular, special, and emergency meetings. The differences between those for our purposes is the amount of time that is required, or the amount of time that's necessary to provide notice of those meetings, and for emergency, the grounds under which we can have them. So generally, for our meeting, this evening and the fourth Wednesday of the month, with the exception of our December meeting, we're required to provide 72 hours notice of that meeting. The agenda lays out all the things that we can talk about, and we can only add items that are not listed on the agenda at a meeting under two circumstances. One, if it's an emergency, or two, if it's a situation where there's a need for immediate action, and that need for immediate action came to our attention after the agenda was posted. The other most common type of meeting that we have are special meetings. These are meetings that are called just to discuss a single or a set items of business. There's no ability to add items of business to a special meeting, but the time period to call them is shorter. It's only 24 hours. Then the last type of general meeting under the Brown Act is an emergency meeting. We've never had an emergency meeting as long as I've been your counsel. I hope we never have an emergency meeting. This is a situation where there's a natural disaster or some other real emergency where we have to meet for some purpose, and we have to get together as soon as possible, and we can't even wait 24 hours to do so. In those situations, the Brown Act has flexibility about how much time we have to give notice. Essentially, it's as much time as we can with special contact to the media. The other type of category that's listed up on that slide with the asterisks is an adjourned. This is sort of a subset of any of those different types of meetings. It is possible after a regular or special meeting, rather than just ending the meeting and waiting for the next time either a special meeting is called or for regular meeting when it's the next time it's up on the calendar, we are allowed, or the board is allowed by motion to adjourn that meeting to a set time and place into the future. Now, the question may be, well, why would you ever do that? And the most common reason to do that is there are certain types of actions that we might take which can only occur at a regular meeting. And if for some reason we can't wait to the next month to take action on something, we might decide to adjourn our regular meeting to 3 days in advance or a week in advance, a week down the road, just so we can still have that as a regular meeting, even though it doesn't fall on the fourth Wednesday of the month. Okay. So in addition to those category of meetings, the Brown Act has different types of meetings based essentially on location, or locations where directors are participating from. Next slide. And I think it's helpful on this to sort of look at it on a chart. So on the far left there are 3 different types of these meetings based on location of directors. The first is the traditional meeting like we're having this evening. The second is a traditional teleconference meeting. Those are situations where each location where a director is participating is a public meeting location, and a member of the public could attend from there if they wished. And then the third type of meeting, and this is a carryover from the pandemic rules that we lived under for a while, is a private remote meeting, which can be done in combination with either a traditional or a teleconference meeting, and it allows one or more directors to participate from a private location without making that location publicly accessible. To allow directors to take advantage of that, they have to establish just cause or an emergency. An emergency is what it sounds like, generally a medical emergency or a personal emergency. Just cause is very specific. There's 4 different categories for just cause. The first is family care. The second is a contagious illness. The third is a disability. And the fourth is if you are traveling on agency business, either this district or a state or local agency. It is not a vacation or personal travel. So moving to the next column, the location for each of these meetings, kind of mentioned it, so I'll go through it briefly. Traditional, everybody's in person. Teleconference, everywhere a director is attending from is a public meeting location that's listed on the agenda, and conceivably any member of the public could attend there. And then for the private remote, it could be in person or teleconference, but you have those private locations for the directors attending with just cause and emergency. In addition, those meetings have to be by Zoom. So any member of the public has to be able to attend and participate from a Zoom or similar type of link. How those meetings are conducted, so voting. For traditional meetings, voice vote is allowed, so all in favor, aye, like we've done this evening, that's okay. For the other types of meetings, all votes have to be by roll call. Audio-visual rules, of course, doesn't apply to traditional. If directors are participating for a teleconference meeting, they can participate by audio only. However, if you are participating from a private remote location under the third category, you have to have your video on while you're attending. The board may remember that former Director Stevens actually took advantage of this a couple of times, and we had to ask him to turn his video on and make sure he was viewable. The next thing to consider between the different types of meetings is traditional. For public comment, traditional, we have to allow public comment for anybody who's attending in the meeting location. We're allowed to open it up for remote, either in writing or by Zoom. That's not required. For a teleconference, mentioned it a couple times already, public comment has to be allowed at every meeting location where a director is attending, and remote, similar to a traditional, is permitted but not required. And then for private remote, in those situations, remote is required. So any member of the public attending those meetings by Zoom has to have the opportunity to provide public comment through the Zoom platform. So attendance, how many folks do we need for each of these different types of meetings? So for traditional, we just need a quorum. So we always need at least 3 of you here, and we can move forward. For teleconference, we need a quorum of you participating from locations within the district boundaries. So we could have 2 of you here and 1 of you over by the lake. That would be okay. We still have our 3. For private remote, it's more restrictive. In that situation, we always have to have a quorum here in person. And we can have up to 2 of you from private remote locations. One other thing that's come up is, can directors leave a meeting during the meeting if something comes up and they're not able to attend for the entire meeting, or they have, a family issue come up? For traditionals, yes, as long as we have a quorum, it doesn't matter if 1 or more of you, or 1 or 2 of you need to step out. For teleconference, this is an issue. So if you are the only director attending from a teleconference location, you don't have to necessarily be there, but somebody does, to make sure that if there's a member of the public that wishes to provide public comment, they have the ability to do so, even how ridiculously unlikely that is. It's technically a requirement of the Brown Act. And then for the private remote, that requirement doesn't apply to those remote directors. They can simply drop off the meeting if they need to. So the last thing to think about is, well, how many times per year can you do each of these meetings? And so for both traditional and teleconference, there's no maximum. It can be as many as we'd like to call. For the private remote, there are restrictions on the number of times that each of you can utilize this, and it depends on the number of times that the board meets per month. So starting from the bottom, because we generally meet once a month, you have 2 meetings per year, and that 2 meetings is basically 2 days. So if we were to have a regular meeting and a special meeting on the same day, that would only count as 1 meeting for your 2 per calendar year. I know some of you are on other JPA boards or LAFCO or other things, and so I wanted to lay out all the requirements. For bodies that meet twice a month, that cap is 5 meetings per year. And for boards that meet 3 or more times a month, it's up to 7 meetings per year. Any questions on those requirements? Okay. All right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Do we have board clarifying questions? Kat?
I do.
Yeah.
So why was the meeting shut down when I bounced off of that?
Because we were under the 2nd category. And in that situation, we lost the meeting location that you were calling in from when you disconnected.
No one was available to give someone the ability to make a public comment at their location should they want to.
As silly as that is, that was the rule.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it's not a situation at which, if there are not members of the public actually attending from those teleconference locations, we can, don't have to consider it. If it has been agendized as a teleconference location, it is a teleconference location for the entire meeting.
Any other questions? Mary Teresa? Any public comment on this presentation?
Good summary. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. Action item number 7, TTAD property insurance renewal. Who is this, you, Rob? Kelly.
Kelly's going to cover this.
Good evening. So I've been working with anyone who will talk to us about property insurance, and we got some great information from Alliant. They are currently the carriers for our directors and officers insurance, and we've been speaking the last few months just about options and what they could help us out with, and they came back with some great information. As you can see up there on the screen, they can provide better coverage for only $317,000 versus the $595 that we're paying with Lloyd's currently. So our hope is to cancel with Lloyd's. This is all happening February 1st, and then get back as much of the premium as we can, and then start up with Alliant. They work with APIP, which is Alliant Property Insurance Program. They work with a lot of different special government agencies. They cover SFO. They work with the SDRMA, so lots of folks that we're familiar with. And if we can cancel the old one, start up with a new one, we should hopefully get around 90,000 back and be able to have better coverage. We were with 10 million, and then it goes to 100 million, and for a much lesser price.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You just said if we can do this. Is that simply a function of us voting, or?
Yep.
Got it.
Mary? Kat? Greg?
Is there literally any downside to their offer? Is there any compromise on?
No, it seemed too good to be true at first, but I questioned all of the things, and they came back with all the answers. So.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this? I have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve this as presented.
Second? Kat, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Action item number 8, appointment of board representative to the Climate Transformation Alliance. Is this, Rob, did you or Kat have a discussion about this for us?
I did not. I had this on for the board of directors to contemplate a new assignment for board members based on past conversations with a number of you.
Okay, so currently Kat is our rep. Kat, are you not interested in doing this anymore?
That
or-
is correct.
That is correct.
I've done it for 3 years,
Okay.
and it's not, my brain doesn't work that way. Like, I don't have any training in it half the time. I shouldn't say half the time. There are times when I don't know what anybody's talking about. Because it can be a little bit high level. That said, I think it's a great organization. I think it's gotten a lot of momentum. We've got new leadership. It's been, I think, very good. And, but you know, since we got away from ad hoc committees, this is really the only, it's not really an ad hoc, but it's kind of the only assignment that any of us has outside of what we do today. So, and I think there are people who might enjoy it more than I do.
Like an engineer we have on the board over there?
That's kind of what I was thinking, but we don't know.
Are you interested in this, Greg?
Yeah, I'd be open to it. Absolutely. I also, if someone else was actively interested in taking the role, I'm new on the team, so I can get in line. You know?
Are you interested, Mary?
When does it meet and how long are the meetings?
So it's, it meets quarterly on Fridays, 9 to 11 in this room. And then we have, I'm sorry. And then we have a monthly Zoom meeting. What day is that? Is that on Monday now? It got moved. It's just an hour once a month on Zoom.
It varies, right?
Yeah. And it's the 3, and that meeting is just the Sierra Business Council, those representatives, because they're running the whole thing, and then the 3 founding agencies, the town, the PUD, and the airport. Typically, the general manager or someone on staff represents the agency, and then a board member.
Okay. And Rob, you're still going to be participating.
Right now, I'm working with a new staff member, Matt Warren, our Director of Facilities, to take over my role with that.
Okay. So, and there's no reason we could have two people going to this
Oh.
because there's not a quorum, right?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
So, well, I kind of like, I mean, this is your bailiwick right now in terms of climate, you know, and I might be interested in attending, although in an official sense, I don't know, you know, but I see
Yeah.
value
Could make
because
one of
this is
us-
what your work is.
Sure. We could make
And-
one of us official and,
Yeah.
I mean, is there any reason that someone can't attend on a whim?
No, perfectly acceptable and commonly done.
Okay.
As long as there's not three of us,
Correct.
Yes.
so.
Yeah, David's come to several of the
Okay.
quarterly
Want to do it?
meetings.
No, thanks.
Not interested, even as an alternate?
Is there money involved? No, I don't mean compensation. I mean, I do money, right? That's what I do. We all know this.
Not really.
Okay, no.
Okay.
It's more.
All right.
There's a finance subcommittee, maybe time guest presenter, maybe.
And then, David, you know, you had done it back when?
I would be perfectly happy to do it, but I would really like Greg to do it,
Yeah, I think that
because
would
I'd
be
like
good.
to get you involved with as much stuff as we can.
I think that's a great idea.
And, you know, in terms of when its meetings are, you know, I'd be interested in receiving that data point, you know, or to all of us, because then we could agree to
Sure.
maybe
Yeah, who's
potentially go as
the
well.
additional attendee.
Yeah,
Yeah, the regular meeting is on the CTA website, Climate Transformation Alliance website, but it's also in my management report. I have it in there this month for the
Okay.
meetings for the rest of the year.
but that doesn't.
The
talk
quarterly
about-
meetings, doesn't have the monthly meetings, but I can share those out.
Yeah, that would be helpful, and then I can, you know, be there or not, you know, depending.
Okay.
Appreciate
Do we
it.
have any public comment? Do we have a motion?
Do we need a motion?
It's action.
I nominate Greg for the CTA.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Greg. Do us proud. All right, discussion items and ad hoc committee reports. Item 9, Apron 2 financing options. Who is taking this?
I will take that. Thank you, David.
Okay.
If we can bring that presentation up. Last fall, when we were talking about in the budget process, our Apron A2 project, the board asked staff to look at, as we get closer to that date, which we are now, possible, rather than self-financing this and paying it, what are the options for financing this? And so we reached out to Oppenheimer, who is a firm, a broker that works with many different banks and public agencies in this region and across California. We asked them, we gave them the basic parameters of the size of the project, and they were able to bring back some detailed information. This is not a hard quote, but I'll walk through this presentation they provided us with regard to, stop right there, yeah. So specifically, we asked them to give us feedback on if we were going to take a $4 million loan, assuming the project was a little over $5 million, we're getting about $1.4 million from the FAA and funding. What the rates look like and the terms look like around a $4 million loan is one option to finance this project. And this is some of the details they walk through, looking at our existing exposure here, our liabilities, our existing executive hangar loan that we're paying on, incoming inflows of revenue, discounting any one-off type revenue sources like federal grant revenue or other one-off grant revenues, and looking at our regular expenses. And the minimum they're looking at for a ratio is that 1.15 time debt service. And you'll see going in the next page here, and they walk through the current debt that we have now that I mentioned with the hangar loan. On the next page, they talk about, thank you. Here are some options that they got back. These are 3 different. They've got about 10 numbers back from banks. This represents 3 brackets of timeframes, which have different corresponding rates. All the rates they got back, and not hard quotes, but just proposed ranges at this point, since we didn't go out to get a hard quote from banks. We just want to get an estimate of what it'll look like to get $4 million in a loan. All the feedback and as far as interest rates were within 0.5 of each other. So this represents over time a 15-year term, a 20-year term, and a 23-year term. What those rates look like, what the debt service looks like on that. So here you have in the first column just the basic details of each of the horizontal lines there. The 15-year term, $4 million, cost of insurance. That includes the cost of the broker, the bank as well, and then the total payment over time and the debt service over time for each of these different categories. Let's go to the next page on there. This is the more detailed analysis on debt service over time and what our ratio in the bottom there for debt service coverage ratio is. The minimum I mentioned earlier is at 1.15. Clearly, in all of our future scenarios going forward, we're in a really good position to borrow money as far as the banks are concerned with getting money. So just even with this loan and our existing loan, we still are looking at a very good position financially to borrow additional money as well if we need to. So I'll stop that. I know the board had a chance to look at this, and this is not an action item today. This is just information. The next 2 months, we should be at the point where we should be able to bring all of our bidding documents for final approval with their airport engineer that'll be going out to bid here soon for the actual project, so we get hard numbers back from the contractors. And then as we go through that process, what we can have another conversation about based on guidance today, whether or not we want to finance part of this project or finance it all ourselves, externally or internally. I'll stop there for questions.
Clarifying questions, Teresa.
Yes, a couple. On this 2025, let's see, the third from the bottom, installment sale agreement, is that what we're talking about? $400,000 a year? That's, okay, so that's what the payment would be if we decided to do this for 20 years?
Depending on the scenario, the 20 years.
But this, I'm just wondering, this
Yes.
the 15-year one, okay. Are these fixed rates?
These are fixed rates.
And the cost of issuance in my world is called an origination fee? I know. I'm just, it's 2 points. Do you have any kind of breakdown of that? Is like the broker charging a point? What?
I don't have a breakdown on the origination type fee. They've rolled it all up in a one line item here, but we can get that breakout.
I mean, in my world, it's very, very negotiable. It's a big loan, so I definitely want to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Their feedback from the loans they do, typically for public agency, this is on the smaller side for them. They do massive projects, infrastructure projects, but certainly we get more detail on the breakout of those fees. Absolutely.
Before we select one, or selected one. Well, I mean, to me, especially at these rates, it seems absolutely no-brainer, especially given the budget proposals we've seen and how slim our margins would go, or I should say our reserves. But, you know, I'm also open to questions.
For clarification, it's no-brainer for what?
To borrow the money, absolutely. 5.25, we should borrow 20 million. I don't know what we'd do with it, but we'd do something because it would be a better rate if we went higher, is what you're saying, which is typical.
Mary?
I was just looking, in terms of, in this debt service coverage analysis, there's no escalation for operating revenues or non-operating revenues, but they are escalating the expenses. So there's some, you know, property tax I don't think is going to go away. I think we'll always be getting some.
Yeah, I think the ratio just gets better if they
Right.
they try to freeze certain numbers to be consistent over time. If we have increased revenue and they're freezing expenses, certainly the numbers get better than this.
The other thing I was just curious about, I mean, in terms of debt ratio being 1.15, right now, existing 22 and 23, our debt service ratio is just 1.095. Is that correct, looking at this chart?
No, it's the opposite.
It's
Flip it over.
9.
It's very, very good.
Yes.
I mean, it's the DSCR loan. I do them all day long. Debt service, yes.
Yeah,
And we are going to look for like 0.75.
okay.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, I see, I'm mixed on this. I think we need to wrestle with it a little bit more. I see advantages to just paying it out of our reserves, and I see advantages to financing it. I think I need more detail on it in terms of what other things in the facilities we need to be doing on field, and what we need to be do with our reserves, and also what we want to do in the community. And I think this is a great subject to be dealing with at our strategic plan meeting, to wrestle with this balancing act. I'm not strong one way or the other. I see advantages to both, and I see disadvantages to both. But at this point, we're just getting information.
Right.
And I think it'll be interesting to see where money goes right now with the new administration in terms of, you know, these percentage rates. Are they going to go much higher, or are they going to go lower? So,
Not likely to go lower.
So if you go to page 9 in that presentation, there's a timeline laid out towards the back there of
Right.
kind of the lead times involved in the process of going back to the broker going to the banks, getting hard quotes back, presenting those quotes to the
Right.
board, seeking board approval of a final award, and then the timeline associated, the necessary steps that go with that. So, you know, 8-9 weeks
Right.
process. So as we get more refined on our going out to bid for the actual A2 project with our airport engineer, we should be able to time this together pretty well over the next 2 to 3 months.
right.
And have enough lead time to let the board make a good, solid decision on real quote numbers at the time that's
Right.
appropriate.
And just the other question, and I appreciated those 3 timeframes of 15, 20, and 23 years, because the pavement life is where it ties into. Is it, you know, and if we keep parking heavies out there, that has an effect. And you know, so how long do you carry that loan for? So there's pluses and minuses, and like I say, I'm very interested in those 2 sides of the chart, which I'm sure you'll bring to us at the strategic plan. Thank you.
Kat, do you have any questions?
Really not a fan of borrowing money when we don't have to. And I also, maybe I'm misremembering, but I feel like we had talked about a scenario where we borrowed some of the money, but not all of it. Is that something that we could look at as well? Say if we borrowed 2 million instead of 4?
Yeah, we certainly can, and we just went for the all-in kind of scenario, the most money we can borrow, but we did last fall talk about borrowing half or some lower portion of it, and I think once we get to that a little closer, we need more refined guidance, I think, and decision by the board about how much we want to borrow, how much we want to finance externally, how much we want to use of our own money. I think we're sitting around 12 million in reserves cash right now. So as we close out the end of the year, we'll have a refined number on that here going forward too.
Do you have a sense of how sensitive those interest rates are to the size of the loan? For instance, if we were to cut the loan in half, are we looking at a couple of change in points, or is it a significant shift? Any temperature check on that, or?
I don't have a good temperature check on that. I think it doesn't get better if it gets smaller, is my sense of it.
Yes.
From my conversations.
I think we all
I've had.
expect that. The
Yeah.
question is just what's
Bigger
the-
gets better, but smaller maybe gets slightly worse. Right?
Yeah.
I have one more comment, if that's okay. The story of 2 PUDs at the lake. One has borrowed money all the way along and has upgraded all the water systems and has plenty of reserves and can buy property if they need to. They can move quickly. They have opportunity, cash for opportunity. The other one has not done that, hasn't raised rates to pay for the financing. Infrastructure is weak. They don't have any money, and they've often been here asking us for some. So I'm just going to put out the tale of 2 cities to consider. And that's, you know, what I'm 56 years old. I've lived there my whole life. I watched it for a long time.
Did you have anything more, Greg?
I mean, it sounds like this is going to be discussed at length. You're sort of planting the seed and putting these numbers on our radar to chew on for
Exactly.
an at-length discussion as part of the strategic plan, because that's really where we'll dig into it.
Yeah, and I think
This is
some of
sort
this
of the opportunity
timing-wise
cost.
may be a little bit ahead of the strategic plan, just depending on how those dates roll out here in the next several months. Ideally, by March, we will have hard construction bids back to the board for consideration and award. So we'd want to decide on financing either in line with that or immediately thereafter. We certainly could start the project with our own money and then borrow money, right?
Okay.
So it'll be almost in parallel with strategic plan update, but maybe not quite synced perfectly. But yeah, this was just a temperature of the water, what are the rates currently, what, is this even a real option? Check in.
Any other questions from the board? Any public comment? Do you have everything you need from the board, or do you need any guidance more?
I get the impression the board is interested and wants more information as we go forward.
I agree. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10, board committee assignments and ad hoc committee reports. Rob?
Let's start first. I believe we have our housing on as the first agenda. Lauren, if you have any updates other than what's already presented?
No, was a basic meeting we had last week. We had some officer changes. I'm no longer JPA chair. That seat is now held by Stephanie Holloway. I didn't want to call her my friend's name. I have so many Stephanies. She's deputy CEO of Placer County. Vice chair is now Kirsten Kramer, who's the superintendent of TTUSD, and Stephen Poncelet is our current board treasurer. That's it.
River revitalization. Jeff?
Yep. The Community Economic Vitality Action Team, which is subcommittee of the river, I'm the chair of that. My last report, we went to town council to recommend 3 catalyst projects in the river corridor. An RFI went out on December 20th. There were 9 applicants within the river corridor that applied to be a potential catalyst. 7 of them actually went through the process and were interviewed. There was an interview committee. Last week, the Community Economic Vitality Action Team voted to recommend 3 catalyst projects. That recommendation will go to town council this Tuesday. And I've put in the report, but one is on the east side of the river corridor, one central, one on the west side. In terms of just geographic dispersion, they meet, those 3 catalyst projects meet all the river goals that are established from the 2005 plan, the 2040 general plan, and lots of discussion that isn't necessarily documented, but these 3 catalyst sites kind of check all the boxes. There's also a time horizon. One of them is a quick win where they could break dirt potentially this year. One is a medium timeline, and one's a little bit more visionary, probably more on that 5-ish year timeline. So that recommendation will go to town council on Tuesday. Town council will make the final decision, and then a partnership agreement between the town and the property owner would be established, and what the town is going to put forth to get those projects underway. So it's a great example of private public partnering and really trying to build some momentum in the river corridor to change it. So,
Can you tell me the website or send the website out for what the 3 projects are? I'm just, or will
Sure.
you tell us now? I mean, I'm just real curious.
yeah, I mean, it's in public record because the Community Economic Vitality Action Team is a Brown Act. So what we voted last week was on the east end of the corridor was the property owner is the Tanner property. They have some office buildings and warehouse and open outdoor storage. And if you talk to the property owner, he says right up front, like, I don't need to be on this riverfront, on the river. I can be anywhere, and I would love to make it my legacy to repurpose this and work with my neighbors. So that's the longest visioning property. There's another property in the central corridor. The bars are the owners of, they've been working with the town for about 7 years, building a restaurant, brewery, distillery, really close. So that would be the quick win, and they could potentially break dirt this calendar year. There's a couple planning pieces that need to, if the town can help shepherd that through, that would go. And then on the western side, that's the Truckee River Group. It's the Unique Boutique property, and they have a long-term plan. We're not recommending the entire plan, but there's the 2 buildings. They're yellow, like storage buildings. They're very dilapidated. It's closest to the street. It would be to work to repurpose those buildings, and not the entire project. So those are the 3 being recommended, but the town council will decide.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Good work.
The next one,
Oh.
go ahead.
One other question. In terms of repurposing to other areas, is that, I guess I can
Yes.
tune into that.
Yes, no. Specifically, the Tanner property, there are opportunities for relocation, which in terms of the whole catalog of goals of relocation, receiver sites, the Tanner project has potential to do that. And if you were to remove, there's open vehicle storage, construction right on the river. You could, whether it was open spaces, access, housing, there's lots of opportunities. So that is the one site that offers a relocation opportunity.
And that's not anything that the River Group is looking at in terms of where they would necessarily go?
No, there is. So the River Revitalization Steering Committee has a subcommittee as well for receiver sites. I'm on that representing the airport. And so receiver site subcommittee has kind of been in a little bit of a holding pattern because there's lots of talk, but or something going to happen. So I think depending when, maybe 6 to 12 months from now, assuming this all unfolds, maybe there's some opportunity to take it out of the, well, maybe should we to, oh, we need 1.7 acres and it has to look like this.
Climate Transformation Alliance, there's some meeting details from our last meeting linked in this document. There were several presentations from the primary members, the governing partners, on their lead impact programs to reduce carbon emissions. And there's some good presentations and good notes in there, and the rest of the meeting dates for the rest of the year are on there as well. ACT meeting, this past week, we did hold our January ACT meeting and solicit feedback from the community on future ACT meeting agenda topics for the rest of this calendar year. This is with some feedback, the recommendation that we're moving forward with by month for the ACT meetings. For each meeting, there'll be a combination, either online Zoom only, online hybrid and in this room, or just live in this room. The next meeting that we have scheduled and we started putting communication out is our deep dive into noise and runway utilization for the community. And beyond just advertisements and social media and in the paper that's coming out, we're reaching out to anybody who's contacted us these last couple of years about noise and annoyance, and inviting them to come to this meeting. The meeting will be a hybrid meeting where we'll do it Zoom and live in this room, and give folks a current picture of what airport operations look like here as far as runway utilization, seasonality of the airport, flight paths around the airport, and neighborhood feedback that we've been getting, what those numbers look like, and just have a robust discussion about noise and the airport here in the community. So we're looking forward to that first meeting with some substance behind it.
Greg, do you have any clarifying questions on any of these reports? Kat? Teresa? Mary?
So this one, deep dive on noise, I'd really like to be at, but have a funeral I have to go to, so I will be missing that one. But during that meeting, it also triggers in my mind that the noise conference is coming up that UC Davis puts on. I don't know where it is this year, but I think it would be useful, you know, for you, and, you know, I don't know if any of the other board members, I went, was it 2 years ago already? Golly. Have you ever been to that? It's really interesting. And in terms of conveying to the group that might show up that this conference happens, and I would really suggest, you know, you being brand new and you've gone before twice, and have you ever gone?
I went to one in Seattle.
Oh, okay. But in terms of providing that information to this group, because for live, and potentially thinking about offering to support sending 1 or 2 people from the concerned community to see the broad base of what the FAA is thinking and doing, because they always have a FAA representative there, that what other communities are doing, what other communities are finding in terms of emissions and noise. And I think that would be valuable for us as a board to support 1 or 2 members of the public who are highly affected to go to this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get the information on the conference to the board, so you can check your schedules to see if you have interest. We'll help coordinate that participation for 2 of you, max. And then just avoid Brown Act issues for conference attendance for more than 2. And then we certainly plan on inviting a community member to be sponsored by the airport to go and attend the conference. That is our intention for this as well.
Thank you.
It's March 10th through the 12th in Vegas, the Flamingo Hotel.
Yeah. Thank you, Lauren.
Now,
Does that pique your interest?
March, yeah.
No other questions from, I have a question about ACT. Is ACT working? What are your feelings on it now that we've done it for several years?
I think I think it's okay. I think based on topic, we get different levels of participation in the ACT meetings. I think the growth of the Fly Safe programs and the forum that's been created by Jeff and company has been tremendous for our pilot community and has great participation. I don't know that we have the same level of external airport participation in the ACT meetings, and but it does vary on topic, and we do get 20 plus people occasionally depending on the topic. So I would give it the rest of the calendar year and maybe revisit it at the end of the year to see if it's still achieving what we want to achieve.
Got it. Do we have any public comment on board committee assignments? Yes, Mary?
On this deep dive on noise, I do believe that, I think you mentioned it in your report, that we are outreaching to people who have made comments in the past to not just doing e-blasts, but actually making, Kay has very busy phone calling to reach out to let people know about this, because I just reiterating that that's happening.
Yes, that's going to be happening over the next several weeks ahead of that meeting. Yes.
Thank you, Kay.
Management team reports.
If you make a noise complaint right now, the response you get advertises, right in your response. If you made a comment yesterday, today you would be getting a reply from Kay that says, hey, we want your feedback beyond the details of the events in question. Please come out on February 12th. So those that are actively engaged right now are getting that reply.
Great.
And she's reaching out to everyone.
Management team reports. General manager's report.
Wait, there's also the TNT TMA.
I don't have any additional comments on that. We've added that report with our other committee reports. Stacy is our representative on that, and they are going through their own strategic planning process. And then as they get a little further into that, we'll be sharing more information about that group's priorities around transportation.
And how
But
we
are
participate
participating
in
that.
it or not, or whatever, Great, thank you.
General manager report updates. I've added our updated strategic plan guidance that's tied to this year's budget on this first slide here. The arrows that are on there are identifying the black arrows, things we're focused on, working on right now. As we go through the months, I'll update it with additional comments. This at a high level. Are we getting these things done? Is a little check-in. And what are we working on, and with traditionally more details in reports that are either in my report or one other team member report here. I've circulated a separate email with feedback from our consultant, Agnew Beck, on strategic plan timing. Lauren will be sending out an email here shortly, trying to coordinate the specific dates that our consultants are available, tied with the programmatics around what we've been talking with them about setting up for this strategic plan update, or tune-up as they call it, and the times associated with that. So more to follow. Under master fee schedule, we did update the master fee schedule the first of this year. As I've shared with the board already, we did add a new category of weight class, type 6, for over 80,000 pounds MTOW for aircraft, the very largest aircraft we see here at the airport, and there is a rate for that. Previously, we had it at a lower rate, everything above, and so we broke it out and added a new category here to really capture and identify and track the most impactful aircraft that we have here. They're very limited. They need special permission to come here if they're over 80,000 pounds MTOW. They need to request permission based on a runway build and strength. Those are infrequent, but conversations we do have with those folks that do come here and approved on a one-off basis. We don't see consistent folks on a regular basis that are in that category. But we do have charges associated with that category now that represents the kind of impact they're having on our pavement management plan here. So we're recouping some of those dollars so we can maintain things like our Alpha 2 ramp here, our apron, and our runways and taxiways. Sustainable aviation fuel, this is the last piece that's on here. We are going to host a industry conference, very small, for about 15 or 20 folks in this region, mostly other airports that are in the general aviation business, maybe some other folks that are in the aviation industry business, but really to share how we've moved over the last several years from being very limited sustainable aviation fuel offering to that's all we're offering. We're building a playbook around how to do that so we can share that out as part of our strategic plan of being the industry leader here in this particular area. It's one of our guiding principles, and we will host that conference right here next month on February 10th, and meet with those various GA airport operators and SAF professionals to have a robust conversation about how we can assist other airports like ours or similar to ours to better understand what sustainable aviation fuel is, how you obtain it, what the process is, or at least the process we went through to move the position that we're at now. So we're looking forward to that. And that is all I have, pending your questions, and I'll turn it over to Josh for any legal updates.
The board at this time?
And I don't have a report this evening beyond the slides. Thank you.
Okay, Director of Aviation.
Good evening. Just a couple highlights. The online hangar reservation system is working great. So we've had $12,000 in bookings so far. So it went live December 28th, 29th, I believe. And so it's been working good. And the vendor we're working with has been real accommodating of bringing it online. There's been movement on the wait list. We are in the process of putting 6 people in hangar. That's been ongoing, and probably have another 3 to 4 hangars probably in the next 60 days that we'll be putting people in. A lot of this is just the transition from the snow damage repairs over the summer and the shuffle game of unshuffling where everyone was, and then getting folks placed into hangars. In terms of our Fly Safe program, David Van Quest is going to become a FAA FAST representative, which will give us some flexibility. So as we're doing the different training and getting things on the FAA's website and getting it classified, we'll be able to do a lot of that ourselves. So good on DVQ for doing the legwork on that. Community outreach, Mark Lamb is retired, and we've said welcome to, I think most folks have met Matt as well, who is just recently onboarded. That's everything I have for the AVCOM report. Also, we have the annual roll-up for operations and comments. Lauren, if you can bring that up. I added a small section up front, just really high level, and we can talk about this on the 12th. Big picture, for the past 5 years, our operations are really fairly static. It's between 31 and 33,000 operations. But if you can blow up a little bit bigger, the percentages, yeah. So year over year for the past 5 years, 55% of our traffic is piston. Jet is 17%. It changes, and you can look in the, through all the numbers, it changes by a little bit, but it's typically less than 1-ish%. So really kind of a static picture over the past 5 years. In terms of comments, the second block down there, it's a lot to read, but big picture, it's, I would categorize it based on the facts I have as a good news story. So 24 to 23, noise comments are down 12% from last year, and from 2020, they're down 47%. And you can see in the numbers there by year, the third column over is households. So 2020 was 185. 240 households in 21. These are number of households that called. Most households call a couple times. Some account for, in some years, half of all of our comments. Last year we had 75 households call in. So these are just kind of the numbers and broken out by whether they're calling about piston, jet, turbo, et cetera. So that's the high level roll up. If you go through the rest of the report, you can go into as much detail as you want, but those are the highlights I wanted to share with the board.
Teresa, questions?
No.
Mary, questions?
Okay. I noticed in the bills that we paid $13,500 to plane noise for the noise comment system subscription. I assume it's an annual cost.
That's every 6 months, so it's about $27,000 annually.
Per 6 months, okay. As someone who did call in on a 3 a.m., it was a flight, and called in, and the rigmarole of getting to leave your message is quite long and complex. And I did get a call back from Kay, and then I called in, and then we just both let it lie because we were missing. I think what you'll find when people come in here, and if they come, is that they're just giving up. And the process of plane noise is quite horrendous to be filling it out. And I would suggest, having been here a while and seen where an individual takes the call, when DVQ was taking the calls and calling people back right away, it was a culture of agreeing, acknowledging that you have a concern. Whereas when you get to this AI voice, and you got to give them 17 pieces of information before you can even say anything. I would rather that $27,000 be spent by staff time. I think it's much more valuable because, we show that comments are down. Maybe because I'm out in the community and I've lived here a long time and I know a lot of people and they know I'm a friendly ear, but not everybody thinks that it's great. They just have given up. But if I had an individual answering the phone, DVQ used to have a private, his own phone that, it was an airport phone, but it was a person with nice music. I think it's much more valuable, and I would like to see that put back into place rather than $27,000 for an AI voice. That's my thought.
Are you asking to have that decision agendized?
Yes, I think that.
Okay, let me provide some background too. So we've been using plain noise since 2016. So we've been using the same system for all the numbers that I've provided. We're using the same exact system. I would encourage every board member to make a noise complaint. I would call our hotline, and I'd also log on. So if Lauren wants to right now, you could log into the Truckee Tahoe Airport, go to noise, you could enter everything. The beauty of plain noise is it correlates lots of information for us, and it becomes a repository of data. And we still call people. We still have the phone. People call if you want. If you don't know the phone number, there's a noise phone number. It'll initially take you to the voice prompts. We regularly get phone calls at dispatch because somebody doesn't even know that. So hey Siri, call Truckee Tahoe Airport. Goes to dispatch. We relay it. So just background. It's been the same system. That's funny. It's been the same system since 2016. So nothing's changed. I'm just facts. And I would encourage every board member to make a noise complaint. It's a really cool system. The information you get back, you get a really professional email. It shows the flight track. Kay, and before that, David would put in personalized information. So some of it's a little bit, thank you for your interest, but it's personalized. There's a lot of good information in there. So.
Again.
And I did it, and I didn't think it was horrendous. I thought it was actually really simple. You call, it goes through a long list of, Truckee. In fact, we could call it sometime. We could even call it right now. I'm not suggesting that, but it'll say, please leave your name, your address, your phone number, what was the time of the event, all the things, because if we don't have that, we can't really do anything with it.
I agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah.
I'm also saying that people that I talk to in the community who are affected and are not happy,
Right.
After you've done it once, every time I got to give them all of this information.
Right.
And I just want to say and so I'm just pushing back a little bit to say.
I understand.
When you're having this noise meeting and people are saying, I'm still highly affected, I still have PTSD.
I hope this room is packed with hundreds of people. Last year we had 75 people, and I'm just providing the data and the facts that's all. And I don't disagree. I'm not trying to argue with it, but
Yeah, I think after we have this ACT meeting this next month and get, live feedback from the community and look at that feedback, happy to talk about the plain set, agendize this, talk about it in detail, have every board member walk through the program. We can crunch numbers on how much it costs to pay staff to be available 24 hours a day to answer live phone. That's very expensive. This is a great system for after hours particularly. And it does capture consistently over time the kind of data that we need to be able to look at on a regular basis. But we could do that in future meetings.
I'm not saying 24/7. I'm saying, on a Friday through Monday, Friday, when we're affected, when people are affected. I'm not saying 24/7.
Yeah, and we can crunch the numbers around what that looks like as far as cost for after hours, additional responsibility. I mean, there's a real cost to that, and so we can put together those numbers.
Maybe it can be a combination of both, is what I'm saying.
Are you, Mary, so at the next ACT meeting, this is the topic, right?
Yes.
Are you willing to go to the ACT meeting and then after that make a decision about whether you want this agendized for the board?
I will, on all likelihood, not make that ACT meeting.
Oh, okay.
Because
That's
I
right,
have that
'cause your
funeral.
That's right.
But if I do make it, I want to hear what people have to say.
Okay.
But I also do believe that after that, the feedback that comes to staff, that might be something to agendize. What is the highest and best use to respect to people who have these concerns?
Okay. Kat, do you have any questions about this?
Yeah. When I make a noise complaint, it's online and it's very simple, so.
Any, about the AvCom in general, you're good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Greg?
Just one clarifying question. I'm assuming the license does not have a volume pricing, so
No, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
it's
No.
it's an on-off switch.
On off, you just pay for it and they
Okay.
provide the software,
Yeah.
the intake.
Okay, Kelly?
Treasurer of Finance.
Just a quick update through November. We're working through December right now and year end, so we'll get going on the audit here very soon. But briefly, here's some info about November. Year-to-date revenue is 18 million versus a budget of 17. Net income negative 259 with a budget of 600,000. We're right about 11.7 in cash. We budgeted to be about 10, I think, when we were trying to forecast when we built the budget. So we'll see what happens at the end of December. And then just a quick update on what we're up to in accounting and finance. We are live with NetSuite now, which is exciting. We won't get to really do a whole lot with it from a GL accounting perspective until the end of the month. But Laura has been, as you've seen, some checks coming out of there, paying some bills, which is exciting. And so we're just working through that and going to come up with some training plans for everybody else so they can start using it. Working on that insurance switcheroo in the next few days here as well.
Greg, any questions? Kat, any questions? Mary, any questions?
I was just on the chart on page 2, you know, you stop at 23, and I'd like to see what the fuel sales were for 24 for next month.
The year's not over yet, according to this report. I'll have it in the December one, though.
Great, thank you.
Teresa?
Good job.
All right, do we have any public comment on the GM report?
Hi there. For some of you who don't know me, Adam Lawler, Sierra Meadows resident. Mary, I appreciate all your conversations regarding the noise abatement. Jeff, appreciate all the work that you're doing, and Rob as well. Kay's got to know me very well, because I call quite a bit, and you hit it right on the head. People just don't call anymore. That's it. So it's pretty real that it's working, but your facts are also wrong. I never get a phone call back. I never get my address. I don't get my name. Kay's got the reverse dial up on that, so that needs to also be explored. So I appreciate all the work. I try to make the ACT meetings. Sometimes I can't, but the noise is a problem. And it's not just with the prop planes or the piston planes that flow in out here every day. It's the big ones that come over. And that's something the community is really worried about. Hawker.
Thank you, Adam. Any other public comment? All right, future agenda priorities and meeting management, review of upcoming meetings and rolling agenda.
Laura, do we have a rolling agenda you could pull up on the, just to get it on the screen, at least for February? I don't know if policy instruction 311 will be a consent item, but certainly the budget this year has transformed that policy, and so we probably should be discussing that sooner than later. That's up to the board whether or not we want to do that then or wait until after the strategic plan update. Makes sense to me too. So that one could move off down the road until we talk about strategic priorities from the board. The action item for February there, land exchange, we've been moving that one slowly. I think we're in the final phases of consistency review by Nevada County for the exchange with TTSA. And so I hope to have either February or March a final brief out on that being complete. And then, of course, we have our strategic plan update, which we have a separate correspondence on, separate schedule, depending on board availability. And then we have some quarterly reports. Get down to March. Nothing additional than those comments for rolling agenda.
What does the board think about 311? Do we want to have that on consent next month, or do we want to wait until we have our strategic plan?
I definitely do not want it on consent. I think we should put it as a high priority in the strategic plan.
Any other thoughts on that?
I agree.
You agree? Greg, what do you think?
I agree, and I think getting those strategic plan meetings pinned down.
Yeah.
Great, thank you for the guidance.
Okay. Do we have any other clarifying questions from the board on that?
Thought you were gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
No, we're almost there. Hang on. Any public comment on that? Item 13, staff and board member conference attendance. Do we have anybody went to a conference over New Year's? Nobody. Okay. And meeting review and direction to staff. Rob.
The two items that I have takeaway notes on is one, just the financing options, and have some more detail on the cost of the overhead for loans and some options around that tied to our actual bidding process, and I'll get the board some more information on that. We owe the board some links and directions about how to participate in the noise and comment for your own knowledge, and we'll get that out to you here. And then maybe lastly is the upcoming ACT meeting and just participation from the board. If the whole board wants to attend, we can agendize that as a regular meeting or a special meeting. But if there's interest beyond just two of you attending it, I don't think we've identified which two for next month and our earlier agenda item. If we can establish that, that would be helpful to know in advance.
Who wants to go to that? That's on the 10th.
That's on the 12th.
12th, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
12th.
I'm out of town.
I would like to attend, but I don't know. I'm,
Right.
so,
Okay. So we have three.
I would like to attend,
potential-
and I will be here,
Okay.
and I
so
can.
when I'm more clear, I will let you know, or do agendize it so that I can make sure I drive back in time.
Great. I'll work with Josh and Lauren to do that appropriately based on potentially three of you attending. So you could attend and participate, not as a board, but as individuals. Right. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks. And I'm guessing no public comment on that. Board member announcements?
No?
Okay, our next scheduled meeting, February 26, 4:30 PM here. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Oh, look at that.
All right.